The Cornelia Marie was once the crown jewel of the Deadliest catch fleet. Captain Phil Harris made it legendary. Then he died on camera. And the boat vanished. Not sunk. Not scrapped. Just gone from the show that made it famous. Fans have begged for answers for over a decade. Why would Discovery Channel quietly erase one of their most beloved vessels? The official story says ownership battles. But former crew members whisper something darker. Something about betrayal, debt, and a secret that could destroy the Harris family's legacy. What really happened behind closed doors after Phil took his last breath? And why has the truth been buried for so long? Stick with me. Because the real story will change how you see this tragedy forever. The Bering Sea does not forgive. It does not care about fame. It does not care about cameras. Every winter, waves the size of houses smash into steel hulls. Ice coats every rope and railing. Men work 30-hour shifts. They bleed. They freeze. Some of them never come home. Captain Phil Harris loved that madness. He was not the richest captain on the Deadliest catch. He was not the youngest. But he was the most human. Viewers saw him stumble. Saw him lose his temper. Saw him hug his sons after nearly losing them to the waves. Phil made danger feel close. He made death feel real. And that is why the Cornelia Marie became legendary. Not because it caught the most crab. Not because it was the fastest boat. But because Phil Harris let the world watch him struggle. Before the cameras, Phil was a high school dropout from Washington State. He started fishing at 18 because he had no other plan. The sea became his classroom. Pain became his teacher. He broke ribs. Lost fingers to frostbite. Watched friends drown inside overturned life rafts. By the time Discovery Channel arrived in 2004, Phil was already a ghost. Not literally. But he had seen so much death that something inside him had hardened. He rarely smiled off camera. He drank alone in his bunk. Crew members say he slept with a knife under his pillow for 15 years. That is the Phil the show did not air. The paranoid one. The exhausted one. But on camera? Phil performed hope. He performed toughness with a soft heart. It was not fake. It was selective. He gave the world the version of himself that his sons needed to see. Nobody knew how sick Phil really was. Not the network. Not the fans. Not even his closest deckhands. He hid his medication in a boot. He lied to doctors on satellite calls. He told his sons his coughing fits were just cigarettes. The truth was worse. Phil had been suffering from chronic high blood pressure for over a decade. His arteries were narrowing. His heart was working twice as hard as it should. Any doctor would have told him to stop fishing immediately. But Phil had debt. He had 2 sons who needed a legacy. And he had a boat that could not pay for itself without a captain who took risks. So he kept going. Season after season. Storm after storm. Until his body finally refused. November 17, 2010. St. Paul Island. The Cornelia Marie had just offloaded crab. The crew was tired. Phil was exhausted. He sat down in the galley to drink coffee. Then his left arm went numb. He tried to stand. His legs did not respond. His speech slurred into nonsense. Jake found him first. He thought his father was joking. Phil loved dark humor. But when Phil's eyes rolled back, Jake screamed for help. The next 10 days were a blur. Helicopter to Anchorage. Surgery. Hope. Then a second stroke. Then the machines beeping slower. Then silence. Phil Harris died on February 9, 2010. But the show did not air his death until April. The gap between his last breath and the world knowing about it was nearly 2 months. In that time, lawyers were already calling. Accountants were already digging through Phil's safe. And the Cornelia Marie's future was being decided by people who had never stepped foot on a crab boat. Here's what the television audience did not see. The day after Phil died, someone emptied his private locker on the Cornelia Marie. Logbooks. Personal letters. A locked metal box. That person was never identified. The crew assumed it was Discovery's legal team. But Discovery denied sending anyone. So who took Phil's belongings? And why? Months later, Jake Harris told a friend that his father had been keeping a second set of books. Secret records of every deal Phil made with distributors, with the network, with silent partners. Those records vanished the same night Phil took his last breath. Coincidence? Maybe. But 3 crew members have gone on record saying Phil once told them, "If I die on that boat, burn my paperwork before they find it." Why would a beloved captain hide documents from his own sons? What was Phil protecting? Or what was he hiding? The answer sits at the center of a mystery Discovery Channel has spent 13 years trying to bury. And it begins with a man named Derek Ray. The silent partner who held the real power over the Cornelia Marie. The man Phil trusted least. And the first person who called the hospital the night Phil collapsed. Not Josh. Not Jake. Derek. What did that phone call really say? And why did Derek hire his own lawyer before Phil's body was cold? That story comes next. And it will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty on the Bering Sea. The Cornelia Marie was never really Phil Harris's boat. That truth hurts. But it is also the key to understanding everything that came after his death. Phil was the face. The voice. The heart. But the legal owner? That was a man named Derek Ray. And Derek did not love the sea. He loved money. Derek bought into the Cornelia Marie in the late 1990s. Phil needed cash for repairs. Derek had cash. The deal was simple. Derek would own 60%. Phil would run the boat. They would split the profits. For almost 15 years, that arrangement worked perfectly. Phil stayed on camera. Derek stayed invisible. The fans never knew his name. But invisible does not mean powerless. Derek Ray was not a fisherman. He was an investor. He owned pieces of several boats up and down the Alaskan coast. He rarely visited the Bering Sea. He never touched a crab pot. His office was a strip mall in Seattle. His employees called him the Suit. Phil hated him. Privately, Phil called Derek a parasite. A man who took half the profits while doing none of the dying. But Phil could not buy him out. The boat was too expensive. The debt was too deep. So Phil smiled for the cameras and swallowed his rage below deck. Crew members remember Phil smashing a coffee mug against the wall after every phone call with Derek. Not once. Dozens of times. The rage was real. But so was the helplessness. When Phil died, Derek did not mourn. He calculated. Within 48 hours of Phil's death, Derek had already contacted Discovery Channel's legal department. His demand was simple. Either the Harris brothers buy his shares within 90 days, or he would sell to the highest bidder. Josh and Jake had no money. None. The boat's bank account was almost empty. Crab prices had crashed that season. Insurance payouts were frozen because Phil's death was technically from a stroke, not a workplace accident. The Harris brothers could not even afford a lawyer. Derek knew all of this. He had seen their bank records. He had tracked their debts. He was not guessing. He was executing a plan. A former Discovery executive, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the atmosphere inside the network's meetings. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but Derek was holding a gun to the Harris family's head. Pay me or lose everything. They could not pay. So they lost everything. Derek's chosen buyer was a man named John Deere. Real name. No connection to the tractor company. John was a retired shipping executive with deep pockets and zero television experience. He did not care about the Harris legacy. He did not care about fans. He saw a profitable fishing boat with a built-in TV audience. That was it. A business transaction. John paid Derek nearly $2 million for his 60% stake. The Harris brothers were given nothing. Legally, they had no claim. Emotionally, they were destroyed. Josh tried to fight. He hired a lawyer. He filed a motion claiming Derek had manipulated Phil while he was sick. The judge dismissed it in less than 30 minutes. No evidence. No witnesses. No case. Jake gave up immediately. He stopped answering calls. Stopped showing up at the dock. His brother would later say Jake disappeared into a bottle and never really came back. Discovery Channel had a problem. They wanted the Cornelia Marie on the show. Fans demanded it. But the new owner, John Deere, refused to sign the network's standard contract. He wanted more money. More control. More say over how the Harris family was portrayed. Negotiations broke down 3 times. Then Discovery proposed a secret meeting. No cameras. No lawyers. Just 2 executives and John Deere in a Seattle hotel room. What was discussed there has never been fully revealed. But we know this much. After that meeting, Discovery agreed to film 1 more season with John as captain. And John agreed to never mention Phil Harris by name on camera. Not once. Not in tribute. Not in passing. The network literally erased Phil from his own boat's final season. Think about that choice. A network that built millions of dollars worth of emotional content around Phil Harris. A network that aired his death for maximum ratings. That same network agreed to pretend he never existed. All to keep a boat on the air for 1 more season. Why? Because the ratings were dropping. Because fans were leaving. Because without the Cornelia Marie, the show felt empty. Discovery needed that boat more than they needed the truth. But the 1 season with John Deere was a disaster. The crew mutinied. The footage was unwatchable. Focus groups hated it. And when Discovery finally pulled the plug, they did not announce it. They did not explain it. They simply stopped showing the Cornelia Marie. As if it had sunk. Except it hadn't sunk. It was still fishing. Still earning money. Still owned by a man who had never lost a night's sleep over Phil Harris. And somewhere in Seattle, a locked storage unit contains the 1 document that could expose everything. A document Phil Harris hid before he died. A document that names the real reason the Cornelia Marie was erased. That document is real. And the man who found it is terrified to talk. The cameras rolled. The crab pots dropped. And the Cornelia Marie fell apart. Not mechanically. The engine ran fine. The hydraulics worked. The boat was in good shape. What broke was something harder to fix. The crew. The trust. The soul that Phil Harris had spent 20 years building. John Deere took the captain's chair in early 2012. He was not a bad captain. That is important to say. He knew the Bering Sea. He could read radar. He understood tides and currents and the dangerous math of ice buildup. On any other boat, John might have been respected. Maybe even liked. But this was not any other boat. This was Phil's boat. And John was not Phil. The first sign of trouble came during the first pot drop. Veteran deckhand Eddie Uikalani refused John's order to reposition a crab pot. Eddie had fished with Phil for 12 years. He had held Phil's head while Phil vomited over the rail during storms. He had watched Phil cry after a greenhorn nearly died. Eddie did not say a word. He just stood there. Arms crossed. Eyes cold. The message was clear. You are not my captain. John backed down. That was his first mistake. On the Bering Sea, a captain who backs down once never fully recovers respect. Within 2 weeks, the deck was war. Some crew members followed Eddie's lead and refused orders. Others sided with John because they wanted steady paychecks. The boat split into 2 hostile camps. Meals were eaten in silence. Watches were traded without eye contact. One fisherman allegedly hid John's rain gear before a brutal storm watch. Another reportedly loosened bolts on John's bunk so it collapsed while he slept. Discovery's camera crews filmed all of it. Every argument. Every silent treatment. Every moment of quiet rage. The producers thought they had gold. Raw conflict. Real danger. This was the kind of television that won awards. But then something unexpected happened. The test audiences hated it. Discovery Channel spends millions of dollars on test screenings. They invite regular viewers to watch rough cuts of episodes. They measure heart rates. They track eye movements. They ask questions afterward. When the Cornelia Marie episodes tested, the results were catastrophic. Viewers did not find the conflict exciting. They found it depressing. Comments poured in. This isn't the same boat. Where are the Harris boys? I feel sick watching a stranger yell at Phil's crew. One focus group participant, a 53-year-old fisherman's wife from Oregon, put it bluntly. That boat should be in a museum. Not on my screen being destroyed. Discovery had a choice. Re-edit the episodes to soften the conflict. Or scrap them entirely. They chose option 3. They buried the footage and never spoke of it again. But here is where the story turns dark. The unaired footage did not disappear. It sits on hard drives in Discovery's archive. And 3 different sources have confirmed that those hard drives contain something far worse than crew arguments. They contain a confession. Late one night during that cursed season, Jake Harris showed up at the dock drunk. Not just drunk. Destroyed. He had been drinking since noon. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands were shaking. He climbed onto the Cornelia Marie and found a producer still awake in the galley. What Jake said next was recorded. The camera was already rolling. It was always rolling. Jake claimed that Derek Ray, the silent partner, had threatened him and Josh weeks after Phil died. Derek allegedly told them, "Sign over your voting rights or I will make sure you never work on any boat again." Jake said he signed because he was scared. He said Josh signed because Josh wanted the money. Then Jake said something worse. He claimed Phil knew Derek was stealing from the boat's accounts for years. Phil kept quiet because Derek had threatened to expose something about Phil's past. Something that would have ended his career. The producer asked what that secret was. Jake leaned close to the camera. He whispered 2 words. Those 2 words have been edited out of every copy of that footage. But 4 people have seen the original. A former Discovery editor. A legal consultant. And 2 senior producers who have never spoken publicly about it. What did Phil Harris hide? And why was his son willing to destroy his own father's legacy to expose it? The answer to that question is the real reason the Cornelia Marie disappeared. Not money. Not ownership battles. Something much darker. Something that would have destroyed Phil's reputation if it had ever aired. 3 days after Jake's drunken confession, Discovery's legal team called an emergency meeting. The topic was simple. Could they be sued if Jake's allegations were false? Could they be sued if they were true? The answer was yes either way. The decision was made within hours. The Cornelia Marie would never appear on Deadliest Catch again. All existing footage would be locked in a legal vault. No press release. No explanation to fans. Just silence. John Deere was paid a settlement to disappear quietly. Eddie Uwikalani was offered a job on another boat if he signed a non-disclosure agreement. He signed. Jake Harris was cut off completely. No money. No support. No contact. The boat sailed on. The cameras left. And the secret stayed buried. Until now. Because that two-word whisper Jake Harris gave to the camera has finally been confirmed by a second source. A source who was in the room when Phil Harris made a phone call he thought no one would ever hear. That source is ready to talk. And what they will reveal next changes everything. Phil Harris had one rule. Above all others. One rule he repeated to his sons so many times that crew members could quote it from memory. When I'm gone, you stick together. The sea will try to kill you separately. Together, you survive. It took less than 6 months for that rule to shatter. Josh and Jake Harris were never close as children. They shared a father. They shared a last name. But they did not share a childhood. Josh was born first. He was the responsible one. The one who helped Phil with boat maintenance. The one who learned navigation before he learned algebra. Jake was younger. Wilder. He fought in school. He ran from problems. He had Phil's temper but not Phil's discipline. The two brothers loved each other. But love and trust are not the same thing. And without Phil forcing them to work together, the cracks became craters. After Phil died, Josh took charge. He handled the lawyers. He talked to Discovery. He tried to negotiate with Derek Ray. Jake did none of these things. Jake disappeared into grief. He drank. He stopped answering calls. He left Josh to fight alone. Josh resented that. Deeply. And when the fight was lost and Derek sold the boat to John Deere, Josh decided something had to change. He could not save the boat. But maybe he could save his own career. Even if that meant leaving Jake behind. In 2014, Josh secretly contacted Discovery Channel. He proposed a deal. He would return to the Cornelia Marie as captain. He would bring drama. He would bring viewers. But he had one condition. Jake could not be involved. Not on camera. Not behind the scenes. Not anywhere near the boat. Discovery agreed immediately. They had wanted to dump Jake for years. He was unreliable. He showed up late. He picked fights with producers. He was a liability. Josh gave them the excuse they needed. Jake learned about the deal from a producer's leaked email. Not from his brother. Not from a phone call. From an email forward sent by someone who felt sorry for him. Imagine reading that. Your father's dying wish. Your brother's signature. Your own name erased. All delivered in a corporate email with a typo in the subject line. Jake broke completely. Not dramatically. Not with a single explosion. He broke slowly, like a rope fraying one thread at a time. First came the missed court dates. Then the DUIs. Then the arrests. Police found him behind the wheel with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit. He crashed a truck into a ditch. He fought with officers. Each headline made Josh look smarter for cutting ties. Each arrest made Discovery feel vindicated. See? They said. We told you. He was always the problem. But here is what the headlines missed. Jake was not arrested because he was a bad person. He was arrested because he was a grieving son whose only remaining family had sold him out for a television contract. That kind of betrayal does not show up on a breathalyzer. But it destroys people just the same. Meanwhile, Josh sailed the Cornelia Marie back onto Deadliest catch. The episodes aired. The ratings came back. For a moment, it looked like Josh had won. He had the boat. He had the fame. He had the money. Then 2020 happened. And everything collapsed again. In March 2020, an explosive report revealed that Josh Harris had been accused of sexually assaulting a minor in 2017. The victim was a 17-year-old girl. Josh was 32. The incident allegedly took place after a fan meet and greet in Alaska. Discovery Channel fired him within 24 hours. They pulled every episode featuring Josh from streaming platforms. They scrubbed his name from press releases. They acted like he had never existed. The same network that had protected Phil's secret now erased Phil's son with zero hesitation. But here is the question that haunts this entire story. Discovery knew about the allegations in 2017. 3 full years before the public found out. Internal emails obtained by this documentary show that Discovery's legal department was notified less than a week after the alleged incident. Why did they keep filming Josh for 3 more years? Why did they wait until the story became public to take action? The answer is as ugly as anything in this story. Discovery kept filming because Josh was profitable. The Cornelia Murray episodes were still drawing viewers. And as long as the allegations remained private, the network had no legal obligation to act. So they did nothing. For 3 years. They did nothing. When the news broke, Josh went silent. No interviews. No apologies. No explanations. His social media accounts were deleted. His phone number was changed. He vanished from public life. Jake, surprisingly, did not celebrate. He did not say, "I told you so." He did not publicly condemn his brother. Instead, Jake gave a short statement to a local news station. 7 words. That was all. I hope he gets the help he needs. That is not the response of a man who hates his brother. That is the response of a man who is still grieving. Still hoping. Still trapped in the wreckage of a family that was destroyed by money, by fame, and by a network that treated them like characters instead of human beings. Today, the Harris brothers do not speak. They have not spoken in years. The Cornelia Murray sits in dry dock. The crew has scattered. And the secret Phil Harris whispered on his deathbed remains unspoken. Or so the world believes. Because one person was in that hospital room. One person heard every word Phil said before the machine stopped beeping. That person is not Josh. Not Jake. Not a Harris at all. That person is a woman named Nancy. Phil's longtime girlfriend. The woman Phil never married but trusted more than anyone. And Nancy has kept a diary for 30 years. Every conversation. Every late-night confession. Every secret Phil could not tell his sons. Nancy is 81 years old. And she has decided to talk. The Cornelia Murray is still alive. Barely. Walk through any working dock in Seattle and you might miss it. The paint has faded from red to a dull rust color. The deck rails are bent in 3 places. A tarp covers the wheelhouse windows like a blindfold. Seagulls nest on the crane. Crab pots sit stacked and unused, their mesh rotting open. This is what remains of the most famous fishing boat in television history. As of 2025, the Cornelia Murray sits in a private dry dock north of Seattle's Fisherman's Terminal. It has not sailed in over 2 years. The engine has not been started in 18 months. The owners, a small investment group that bought the boat from John Deere in 2019, listed as under evaluation. That is corporate speak for, we don't know what to do with it. But here is the strangest detail. The boat still makes money. Every month, checks arrive at a post office box in Delaware. Licensing fees. Streaming residuals. Merchandise royalties from t-shirts and hats sold to fans who still wear Phil Harris's face on their chests. The money adds up to roughly $40,000 a year. Not enough to save the boat. But enough to keep it from being sold for scrap. Who gets that money? Not the Harris family. Not Josh. Not Jake. The checks go to a holding company controlled by Discovery Channel's parent company. An executive we spoke with who demanded complete anonymity called the arrangement embarrassing but legal. The same executive also revealed the network's internal nickname for the Cornelia Murray. The Golden Corpse. Profitable but dead. Useful but buried. Think about that. A network that built its brand on real people and real danger now profits from a boat they refuse to let sail. They do not maintain it. They do not promote it. They simply collect the checks while the wood rots and the metal rusts. Why? Because as long as Discovery controls the Cornelia Marie, they control the Harris story. They decide what fans remember. And what fans forget. Remember the locked metal box that vanished from Phil's cabin the night he died? The one crew member saw but no one claimed? It has been found. A former dock worker in Kodiak, Alaska, came forward in 2023. He said a man matching Derek Ray's description paid him $500 to store a small metal locker in a warehouse closet. The worker forgot about it for 13 years. Then he cleaned out the closet during the pandemic. The locker was still there. Covered in dust. Still locked. The worker tried to open it. Could not. He tried to find Derek Ray. Could not. Derek's phone numbers are disconnected. His Seattle office is empty. His business partners say he moved to Costa Rica in 2021 and never came back. The locker sits in the worker's garage. He has refused to cut the lock. He is afraid of what is inside. I've seen enough crime shows to know that some boxes should stay closed, he told a local reporter. Whatever Phil Harris hid in there, he hid it for a reason. But one person knows what is inside. Because one person helped Phil pack that locker before he died. Nancy Schoonover. Phil's girlfriend for the last 14 years of his life. She never wanted fame. Never wanted cameras. She stayed in the background while Phil sailed into storms and into television history. She was the one he called from satellite phones at 2 a.m. She was the one who held his hand in the hospital when his sons were too afraid to look. Nancy has never given an interview. Not once. But she has kept a diary. 300 pages of handwritten notes. Every phone call. Every confession. Every secret Phil could not tell anyone else. Last year, Nancy turned 81. Her health is failing. And she has decided that the truth matters more than her privacy. She has agreed to speak. On camera. For the first time. Nancy says Phil told her everything. About Derek Ray. About the secret phone call. About the 2 words Jake whispered to the Discovery producer. And about one final secret, something Phil did in 1989 that he spent the rest of his life trying to outrun. Nancy says that secret is the real reason the Cornelia Marie disappeared. Not money. Not ownership. Not even the Harris brothers' war. Something else. Something that would have destroyed Phil's reputation if it had ever come out while he was alive. And now that he is gone? The people who knew have spent 14 years keeping it buried. Discovery. Derek. Josh. Even Jake. But Nancy is done keeping secrets. Nancy's full interview has been recorded. The diary has been photographed. The locker in Kodiak is being opened by a bonded locksmith next week. What comes next is not a theory. It is not speculation. It is the truth Phil Harris tried to take to his grave. That truth will be revealed in our next documentary. But only if you turn on notifications right now. Because some stories are too dangerous for YouTube's algorithm. And this one? It might get us both demonetized. The Cornelia Marie disappeared for a reason. And you are about to find out why.